All right, so Sunday we had the most black quarterbacks starting in NFL history.
Really?
Yeah, but that's a problem.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about it. All right, guys, welcome back to Relative Conscious. My name is Antonis Brown.
Irvin Bryant.
Shout out to DJ for making the beat.
At DW Made That on social media.
I'd like you guys to like and subscribe to the page and to our Twitter.
It's at Kinda Woke on everything.
All right, so real quick, let's talk about what happened in Kansas City. So, our Texans played the Chiefs. We're not gonna talk about the game.
Embarrassing.
It was bad, But two black quarterbacks started the first game of the NFL season this year. They're also the two highest paying quarterbacks in the NFL, as Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, right? So the Texans and the Chiefs took a kneel. And then what happened?
Roll the clip. Universal boos.
Yes.
Seemingly universal boos.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've heard a boo so loud that wasn't related to a bad call.
Yeah, or to somebody dropping the pads, or to the Texans just existing. Yeah. And so first thing, Kansas City is not in Kansas; it's in Missouri. Right?
Yes. Well, this part of Kansas City is in Missouri.
Yeah. The Chiefs are based in Missouri.
Yeah.
The game's in Missouri. The fact that they have fans should probably tell you the political makeup of said state. Yeah. So they booed pretty loud, And why is it that they felt they had to boo when they did a moment of unity or took a kneel during the flag? What is it that made them do that?
Right. It's very interesting because other than the flag being flown, it being the national anthem, it is a silent protest.
Yes.
So it is surprising, and it was for many viewers at home to see, okay, you see the kneeling, and that's not new at all.
Yeah.
But to hear boos at a silent protest, good question.
Yeah.
Why? And it's simply because we know this is related to Colin Kaepernick. We know that Colin Kaepernick was saying the quote, Black Lives Matter. And unfortunately, Black Lives Matter has been politicized and politicized in a certain direction that makes it unacceptable.
Yeah, so, and most NFL teams are about 70% black, about the rest would be Hispanic, white, whatever else. You got good old boys on a lot of teams, Our good old boy is J.J. Watt, who took a knee. J.J. Watt's comments afterwards were filled with people saying, I'm not going to watch anymore. I can't believe you are cool. Black Lives Matter. There's no people at the baseball games, but when the Astros did the same thing for Black Lives Matter, they postponed a game. They put a Jackie Robinson Astros jersey down, and then they put a Black Lives Matter t-shirt down at home plate.
So this game will not be played tonight in Houston. I believe the Mets did it. Yes. They took the field and they waited for 42 seconds, the number of Jackie Robinson. So the two jerseys and the Black Lives Matter t-shirt at home plate. So the A's and the Astros indeed showing unity in the fight against social injustice in Houston tonight.
And then the comments were filled with people saying they don't want to watch the Astros anymore because of Black Lives Matter. Because we rock with Black Lives Matter, right? And so if you watch Tucker Carlson, he made an argument for this back April, right? So he was kind of first out the gate. He says Black Lives Matter is a political ideology, a political movement. Like, it is all about politics, right?
The most telling moment, though, came just before that, when the woman in sunglasses threatened to defeat the mayor in the next election. What does that tell you? It tells you that Black Lives Matter is, in fact, a political party, maybe the strongest political party in the United States as of tonight. Its members believe they can reshape this country, and so far, they're proving to be right.
And so, how did Black Lives Matter get politicized?
Right. And so you may be thinking, oh man, this is stupid. Click away from the video.
Yeah.
These guys are thinking Black Lives Matter just became political, and obviously they were born yesterday.
Yeah.
I get it, but hold on. Black Lives Matter is, for all intents and purposes, an ethos, a sentiment, a quote that was taken from a poetic Facebook post by the founder, or one of three founders, Alicia Garza. Right? In doing so, she just said Black Lives Matter, it catches on, and she was grieving the loss of a Trayvon Martin and the lack of justice in that situation. So, people run with it. We say it again and again. And I would say that in the first 5 years,
Right.
6-7 years of Black Lives Matter, it is not political because a political movement has an agenda, a specific agenda.
Yeah.
To put it plainly, the gay rights movement, right? Moving for same-sex marriage. Clearly legislative, has a clear arc of goals, legislators that they're meeting with. Their pride marches have particular legislators and legislation that they're pushing for.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the Supreme Court makes a decision, the issue is not totally resolved. Gay rights still need to be pushed forward in a bunch of different ways, but there's a milestone there.
Mm-hmm.
In Black Lives Matter, there is not a clear stated goal besides making Black Lives Matter, which is excellent, but that's a sentiment, that's an idea.
Yes.
And so when different counties and cities make different changes, it's not a landmark, it's not a milestone. We are just still stuck here with the anger and frustration. So where it becomes politicized is the next step.
Yeah, and so I think it's because there is no real leadership to define Black Lives Matter, right? And so, real quick, I understand people are going to say, it's the language of the presser to call it politicized. Because, if I was Fox News, I would call Black Lives Matter politicized or a political movement or something radical off bat, right? Because I would say, well, they're asking for too much, and therefore, because they're asking for too much, I'm going to say they're wild, they're out there, they're not,
Right.
This is what they did to Dr. King, right? They tried to say Dr. King was asking for way too much. He was not rational. He was radical, right? But the problem is when you have a black Southern minister who continues to go to the Word and continues to be a hard line, and who can speak out against acts that go against nonviolence, and they can continue to say what it is that we want for the government to do, for the state to do. That's easier, right? So the civil rights movement can never be defined by if Fox News existed at the time, right? The racist sheriff, at the different protests, because a bunch of different racist sheriffs during that time.
Oh my God.
They can never say that the civil rights movement or SNCC or SCLC were a bunch of radicals who were bent on destroying the country, because SNCC and SCLC had spokespeople, right?
Right. And so they could say that.
Yeah.
And they did.
You heaving a sigh of relief today that all this is moving out of your county now?
I hope it's over, but I doubt it. I think when Martin Luther King has used us as much as he wants to, then he'll move out.
What about the people who are left behind there now? Are they going to settle down again?
I'm sure that the local people will.
Mm-hmm. You think it's all been due to outsiders?
I think it's definitely been due to outsiders. I noticed yesterday in the march, a group of my friends and I stood there, and we were able to count 5 local niggers in the whole march.
Do you think there are many communists in this procession?
I think it's possibly made up of 1/4 communists and 1/2 pro-communists.
Yeah.
But those criticisms fell on deaf ears, as people could see on television, black youth, King himself, white allies being beaten while they're peacefully marching by the clear aggressor, the police officers. And not only the America at large would see, and some would be disgusted, some wouldn't care, but the world at large would see, communists could see, this is the 50s and 60s, we got a Cold War working, and we're supposed to be the freedom fighters.
Right.
So the whole conflict comes to a head when it's like, okay, so there's a right side and there's a wrong side.
Yes.
And we can see that. Regardless of what you're telling me, the evidence bears out that this preacher, and y'all are supposed to be Christians as well, is the good guy.
Yeah. The problem becomes with Black Lives Matter is that many times the microphone is given to people who are, I'm just going to say it, people who are start to espouse some wild ideas, right? It's like what happened in Seattle, right?
Protesters say they won't be intimidated by threats and say they plan to stay as long as it takes to bring about change.
I'm not scared of Donald Trump, no, and I'm not scared of these police officers either. We're going to stay outside this building whether they come here or not. We're going to take this building over whether they're outside threatening us or not. We're not afraid of them.
Among the protesters' demands that the department be defunded and that the station be turned into a community center.
The microphone was given to him. This is, from my personal point of view, I believe that is, not to sound like Donald Trump, I believe the media and just how the structure of money works gives them the mic to the most radical person, because that helps. If he says something crazy on CNN, people are going to tune in and watch it. People are going to replay the videos when they make podcasts about it, right?
Yeah, retweets and all that.
Yeah, so But if I give the mic to Dr. King or to someone who's more reasonable, they're going to say something reasonable.
Boring.
Yeah.
The word you're looking for is capitalism.
Yeah.
And very, very true. And so, relatively conscious question, what is Black Lives Matter's Achilles heel? We would argue that it is the type of leadership or lack thereof. And more evidence, to be more specific, in Seattle we have the Capitol Hill Occupied Zone. They changed the name as the movement has failed.
Yes.
But we had people taking to the streets, occupying in the military-like fashion, quasi or paramilitary fashion,
yes,
with armed militias that we typically denounce when it's a Kyle Rittenhouse, and I denounce it in every case.
Yes.
Holding up an upscale neighborhood and doing a weird authoritarian pseudo-anarchist
Dark Knight type stuff.
Bane.
Where is Bane? It's been no mistake, Mr. Stryver. You are Philip Stryver, Executive Vice President of Daggett Industries, who for years has been living off the blood and sweat of people less powerful than him.
Oh, Bane, I am one of you.
Bane has no authority here. This is merely a sentencing hearing. Now, the choice is yours. Exile or death.
Took over a rich neighborhood in Seattle. And because Black Lives Matter does not have a vanguard who can protect the name and identity and project a clear political message, again, at this point, it's still kind of amorphous, not quite political. It is politicized not only by the Tucker Carlsons, but by the Capitol Hill Occupied Zone, who takes the name and operates under the movement. Now, in the summer 2020, racial reconciliation happens, and peaceful protesters are, like they were in the 50s and 60s, being beaten by police on television. Their approval ratings skyrocket. People can see, okay, there's a good guy and a bad guy here. Some people are just saying Black Lives Matter. Other people are saying, get out of the way before I beat you with my nightstick.
He is fleeing!
Yeah.
There's a problem there. But when the crazies come out, when all the white guys cosplaying as the Joker come out, when all of the looters come out, you know what I'm talking to, take to the streets with the same name, now Black Lives Matter is besmirched, and there isn't a Dr. Luke King to say, hey, the riots are the voice of the unheard, but that's not me.
Yeah.
There's Alicia Garza is nowhere to be seen. I don't know if you know she's in the public sphere anymore.
Yeah.
And now we arrive at Kansas City, Missouri.
Yes. Where the NFL takes a stand because its players ask them to take a stand.
Right. Because Black Lives should matter.
Yeah.
Right.
And they get booed because people see it only as they only see Black Lives Matter in its most radical forms, right? And it's because the movement is nebulous, right? And these are the fights, you know, the wrap up kind of here. These are the fights we had time and time again in college talking with the Black Lives Matter people, right? And I kept saying this, you know, being for the military, I kept saying, why do you not have a structural leadership? Why isn't not, membership, you pay dues, and I can exile you from membership, you start saying some crazy stuff. And people were like, well, no, that's not good, you cut the head off the snake that way, all different types of things, right? And I kind of understand it, right? The Black Panthers, J. Edgar knew, if I put Huey in jail, and I got Bobby Seale and Everett Cleaver fighting with each other the entire time, right? Then I can disrupt the movement. Also, once a new guy rises up in Chicago, I can kill him, Fred Hampton, right?
Yes.
So he knew what he was doing, right? But Black Panthers, because they had an organization, it was a lot harder to kill that organization. It took the full fight of the full power of the FBI to do that, right? SNCC, LCLC, they could reject
counterintelligence and try to spoil and spread rumors. But when there's such a strong moral undergirding and a straight hierarchy where it's like, I'm going with what King says, and what he says, I don't care about what nobody else cheating on your wife, that's not what we're doing here. Right? But they're very, very hierarchical, very organized, kind of impenetrable, well built.
Yes. But when Black Lives Matter is, you have Black Lives Matter Houston, Dallas, Seattle, San Antonio. It's all different. It's all different people.
They don't communicate with each other.
And that means that whenever one person does something wrong, there's no rejection of them because nobody forced to reject it, right?
They have the full authority to operate under this name.
Yeah.
And do whatever they're doing as long as it's in the name of Black Lives, regardless of whether or not it's actually efficient.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not it aligns with the original stated goals or the original ethos. Regardless of whether or not it's going to spoil my movement over here. Because it could work for you in California.
Yeah.
But you saying that crazy stuff that flies in California does not fly over here.
In Texas.
And it didn't fly in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah. And so we're going to come back to this at some point because the NBA is going to have some really interesting issues. And as the NFL continues and more protests happens, what happens, as we go along with that. But I think at the end of the day, Black Lives Matter has been defined by Fox News. And because because there's an ethos of wanting to be nebulous because it's easier that way.
Because it hasn't defined itself.
Yeah, because it's defined itself. It has been defined by its enemies.
To answer our comment question, what is Black Lives Matter's Achilles heel? I would encapsulate it in saying the adage that has become corny at this point. If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything.
Right.
I don't believe Black Lives Matter has been duped into anything, but we have stood for no particular idea, no particular philosophy, and therefore we've fallen due to being pegged by other people.
Yeah. So, like, comment, subscribe. My name is Antonio Brown.
Irvin Bryant.
This is Accountable Podcast.
Do it to him, Pete.